Tesla and General Motors have rolled out big news this week, and I'll tell you all about it, but who's ahead? The young electric car startup turned giant, or the giant turned electric car startup? To help me sort through this, InsideEVs contributor Tom Moloughney will be here. We will also take a first look at Tesla's newly released big full self-driving update, which this time actually looks like full self-driving, while Tesla's fighting a huge recall issue in China, and Fisker is starting to blossom into something real and promising. All of this is coming up next. Welcome to E4Electric, your number one source of electric car scoop. What a big week. And if you are interested in everything that's going on in the world of electric cars, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, this week we had a battle between the old and the new. Both are impressive, but we will start with Tesla as they released the Q3 report. And of course, there was the earnings call. They've set quite a few records, including the production and delivery numbers, which we did know. Fifth straight quarter of profits, $331 million gap, set a new record in revenues, cash flow, and the amount of cash that they have in the bank at $14.5 billion. Of course, there were still a few concerns, including the fact that their entire profit came from the sales of the regulatory credits and that they had to pay out the CEO award to Elon Musk of $290 million. And even though this was super impressive, the spotlight was stolen by the release of the full self-driving update, which, like I said, now looks like full self-driving. There are a few videos that were already released by the early access program drivers, and it looks amazing. I'll talk about it later in the video. And from the other side of the industry, finally General Motors has unveiled the Hummer EV all electric. There's absolutely no gas version. I got to see it in March, but now you guys got to see it as well, so at least we can be talking about the same visuals. As I mentioned in my video that I made about it earlier this week, a very impressive vehicle, but not very impressive execution. Now, I know a lot of you guys have disagreed with me in the comment section that I thought that the look could be a little bit more aggressive rather than refreshing the 10-year-old version, but I think everybody agreed that the timeline of coming up with the cheapest version in 4 years by 2024 is definitely disappointing. There is no consensus, which is kind of surprising, about the pricing, but I gotta say that the cheapest version of the Hummer EV in 2024 will still be more expensive than the most expensive version of the Tesla Cybertruck that's coming out next year. Nevertheless, the specs are still pretty impressive. 1,000 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, 350 kilowatt max rate charging, which means about 100 miles in 10 minutes. So the car is great. The vehicle is absolutely great. I'm looking forward to seeing it in person next Friday, and of course stay tuned for that report. So what does this mean for the bigger picture in the industry, in the internal struggle between the old and the new? For answers to questions like that, we always turn to the InsideEVs contributor Tom Moloughney. But before that, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by, and this is our new sponsor, XPeng Motors, China's leading smart EV automaker, featuring all-electric sports sedan P7 and G3 SUV. XPeng has just launched the world's first all voice in-car system at its annual Tech Day. For more, follow XPeng on Facebook using the link in the description of this video. And by Climate Exchange, have you entered the Tesla raffle yet? You can win a Tesla of your choice. Only 4,000 tickets will be sold, so make sure to get yours using the link in the description of this video. And even if you don't win, the money will go towards a great environmental cause. All right, Tom, this week we've witnessed kind of a mini battle of the giants, GM versus Tesla, the old school manufacturing versus the new tech startup. And I think we can tell a lot. And let's start with a Hummer EV. Looks like the timeline expands in over 4 years, and the original first edition is going to be quite pricey. But they're not going in it alone, right? By the time the Hummer's on the market, there will be Rivian, and there will be the Cybertruck. Do you think Hummer EV is set up to compete with just those two, even though there will be more?
So Alex, I know it's so easy for us to talk about what these new electric vehicles are going to compete against. Remember when I did the ID4 review recently, everybody wanted to know how is it going to hold up against the Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E, these other electric crossovers. But I pointed out that it's not designed to compete against them. The ID4 is going to really go against the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V. It's going to take sales from combustion cars more so than it will from EVs. Now, the EV market is expanding. I believe the same is true with the Hummer EV. I don't think, although many people will probably disagree with me, probably some of your followers, the Cybertruck and the Rivian aren't necessarily its primary competition. I think the people that are going after, the people that are interested in the Hummer EV are going to be people that would have bought a gasoline car, a loaded GMC Denali, or a Cadillac Escalade, something like that. And if you stack it up against those vehicles, the price delta isn't that much different. Option out a fully loaded Cadillac Escalade, and then against some of these lower trim versions of the Hummer EV. Now, this $112,000 version is already sold out, so forget about that. The next version is going to be $100,000, and then it's going to go down in about 3.5 years to the $80,000 version. The car stacks up really well against the high-end ICE competition. And I think that's really what GM's going after.
All right, but nevertheless, as they're trying to electrify, it looks like they're just not able to roll out even a mass production electric vehicle like the Hummer. I think Bolt has kind of stalled. Overall, it does look like GM is having trouble, innovating and catching up with Tesla. Meanwhile, Tesla just posted fifth straight quarter of profits. They have a lot of things going on. They're building out 2 more factories. I mean, they're on top of the world. So looking at such contrast, of these 2 companies coming up with this big news in just 1 week, do you think that this could be the beginning of the end of the GM and maybe some other legacy manufacturers that obviously not able to catch up with Tesla? Do you think there is a possibility that they just may not make it?
So we're hearing reports now that GM fast tracked this Hummer, and that from the time it was conceptualized to the time it's going to launch was only 3 years. Will be, I think, the shortest time GM's ever made a vehicle in. So what's that go to show you? They're kind of panicking. They're realizing they're behind, and they should be panicking because they are falling behind. And not just GM, this is all of the legacy OEMs. There's going to be casualties, Alex. I've been saying that for the last nearly decade now. The entrenched legacy OEMs are not going to be able to react fast enough, and some of them are going to fail. Some of the big names that only a year or 2 ago would be inconceivable if you were going to say, oh, Toyota's going to fail, or BMW is going to fail. And I'm not singling them out. I'm just throwing names out. But GM is definitely in that category, and they can, if they don't make this transition to electrics quick enough.
All right. Now, I come from the tech world, and, when a tech company is not doing very well or they're not able to innovate and keep up with the rest of the competition, they buy a smaller company that's figured it out very quickly and they survive. Now, GM has refused to do that, unlike others, like, Ford has invested into Rivian and so forth. But it's not like there's not enough startups out there with good technology, like, Lucid and Fairlight Future and others. Why aren't they going that way? And by the way, the only time they've tried working with a smaller company, it was Nikola, that now we know has nothing.
So why haven't they, Alex? I can't answer that question. I think a lot of these companies, sometimes it's their, bravado, their hubris, that they think that, well, listen, we've been making cars for 100 years. We don't need help from this little startup company that, it's got 50 employees. We've got 50,000 employees, or more. So I think that quite often you get that type of a problem with these entrenched companies, where they feel that, look, when we want to make electric cars, we could just flick the light switch and make electric cars. It's not that hard. But we're seeing now that a lot of the companies are realizing, yeah, it is hard, it's different. And look at all the software issues that a company like Volkswagen was having with the ID3, and now we're seeing there's a battery problems with the Kona and possibly the Bolt. So it's not that easy, and I think the reality is starting to set in now.
All right, now I know there's one topic that I wasn't going to talk about in this video, but you thought that was important to talk about. This topic we rarely agree on, so I'll give you the stage.
So BMW just sold they just produced their 200,000th i3. Okay, now the i3 started sales in 2014. So it's been out there for 7 years now, and they just manufactured their 200,000th. Now, that might not seem like an amazing amount year over year. I get it. But understand this. How many other companies have sold 200,000 EVs of a certain model? Nissan with the Leaf, Renault with the Zoe. That's it, other than Tesla. And Tesla's only done it with the Model S and the Model 3. So, out of all these manufacturers out there making dozens and dozens of electric vehicle models, there's only 5 cars that I know of that has made more than 200,000, and the i3 is one of them. So you could hate on the i3 all you want, but who else has done much better?
Well, my main hate of the i3 comes from the design, which I know is a whole different conversation. But I would be the last one to root against as many electric cars on the road as possible. But the fact is in 7 years, they've produced 200,000 vehicles. And really, I guess that's not even my biggest issue there. They haven't really improved it. When you have a vehicle on the market for 7 years, especially in the new technology like this, I expect them to increase the range, which is still way under 200 miles, which I don't see how it's acceptable. They haven't put any new tech in the car, nothing to talk about. They really kind of almost abandoned it, and it's not like they've started building other electric cars until kind of very recently. So as much as I want to celebrate this with you, I think if anything, this is an indication of BMW's failure so far to build their electric future. Do you partially agree?
So I agree that they haven't done a fantastic job of updating it, but they have had battery updates, Alex. When it launched, it had a 22 kilowatt hour battery. 2.5 years later, they gave it a 33 kilowatt hour battery. Now it has a 42 kilowatt hour battery. So the range has doubled since it first came out. That's a pretty good increase. Yeah, it's still not 200 miles per charge, but the i3 owners seem to live just fine with 150, 160 mile range. They also came out with the i3S, which I owned. It's the sport version of it, where they gave it a whole new suspension, lowered it, and the car drives really well, like a proper BMW. So yes, they haven't made huge advances, but they have improved the vehicle. And I still say, show me the other cars. Your beloved Volt. You have a Volt. You love the Volt, right?
Yes.
The Volt's been available longer than the i3, and I don't think GM sold 200,000 of them. So I could be wrong on that. We have to look that up, because I was looking up the pure electrics on worldwide sales. But it's still in rare company, Alex. Only 5 vehicles that I know fully electric have sold 200,000. And the i3 is one of them. So you got to give it some credit there.
And I will give full props to BMW for having 200,000 more electric cars on the road than we otherwise would have. If you want to hear more from Tom, subscribe to his YouTube channel, where he does a lot of range tests and home charger reviews. You will find that link in the description of this video. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, Tesla has made a bigger splash with their full self-driving update than their record-setting Q3 report. So let's talk about that, because now we have a few videos that were released by those who were lucky enough to get it. I wasn't lucky enough to get the update, but mainly because I don't have a Tesla, and I don't think my Volt can run on that software, so I'm okay with it. Now, let's talk about what was actually added. And what was added was the ability to make left turns and right turns without any interference from the driver, including getting on and off the ramps, and that's in addition to being able to stop at the stop sign and the stop light. And that kind of completes the list of all the basic things that the car would need to do to be able to drive itself, and that's a huge deal. Now, the graphics for this looks pretty cool. I'm sure it will go away, though Elon did say that for some people who still want that on, there will be an option to turn it on. But as you can see, the car can now see pretty much everything and make a lot of good decisions. Now, after watching a lot of footage, it does look like, even though it is impressive, it does still make a few mistakes where drivers had to interfere so it doesn't run over a curb or make a turn that's too sharp. But for the first release of this new feature, I have to say, you can literally now see the future. And of course, most of this footage was shot here in California, where we have a pretty clear weather on the very dry roads. The bigger tests will be in snowstorms and sandstorms and rain and all of that stuff, but this is a good start. And the release notes could not be any more blunt about the risks of this first version. It literally says it may do the wrong thing at the worst time. Kind of reminds me of my ex-girlfriend. And Elon wasted no time to announce that once again, the cost of this package will go up, this time by $2,000. So by Thursday, even though originally it was announced for Monday, it will be at $10,000. Let me know in the comment section if you think it is too much or maybe in some cases too little. But the good news that Elon also mentioned that next year, Tesla will offer a monthly subscription for this, so you don't have to buy the entire package. You just can subscribe month to month if you wish. However, there are some concerns once again that the current hardware may not be able to handle the new version of the full self-driving package, specifically the radars. It looks like Tesla may be switching from the Continental supplier to a relatively new company called RB Robotics. So people are wondering if they will have to get a retrofit like they had to do with some of the hardware before, or if the new hardware is just an improvement and the full self-driving package will work on existing hardware. Before we get to the last Tesla news, let's talk about Fisker, who's having like a third rebirth. The company is going public. Obviously, that's going to give them some major cash injection, but also they have finally settled on a production partner, which will be Magna. And now that it looks like their all-electric SUV Ocean will become reality in a couple of years, they got their biggest order to date from Viggo, which is a ride-hailing service in Denmark of 300 cars. On top of that, Fisker has teased the final production version of the Ocean, which he said that they will unveil in currently scheduled LA Auto Show in May of 2021. And of course, full disclosure, I am a brand ambassador for the LA Auto Show, so I can't wait. And now back to Tesla with not such good news, because in China, they will be recalling 30,000 of Model S and Model X cars that were manufactured between 2013 and 2017 due to some suspension issues. And even though Tesla said that they will comply, they said that they absolutely disagree with this. They're actually blaming customers for, and I quote, driver abuse. Tesla also said that this issue is twice as likely to happen in China than it is in the rest of the world, so they're also blaming Chinese roads. Now, I'm not an expert in Chinese infrastructure, but I have to say that I spent some time in China a couple of years ago, and I've seen less potholes on their roads that I've seen just today driving from Chipotle to my home. And I'm not really sure if Tesla has the case in terms of having drivers drive these cars too hard, because they're essentially promoting these cars as a high-performance vehicles that are kicking everyone's butt. So I'm not sure if there is such a thing as driver abuse when it comes to Teslas. Let me know in the comment section if you agree. Meanwhile, a huge shout out to one of my newer Patreons, Paul Clark. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, and you can as well. I do weekly live streams when I tell you a lot about what's going on behind the scenes. Go to patreon.com/E4Electric. I also put that link in the description of this video. And of course, if you are wondering what to watch next, you should definitely check out my video about the Hummer EV. I put the link in the description of this video, and if you're watching me on YouTube, the link will be in that corner, what I think about the vehicle itself is not at all the same what I think about the manufacturer, which will make it even more awkward when I get to see all of them next Friday when I will get to check it out in person. Looking forward to all of your comments. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.